Okay, well, I just started mine. Let's see if mine connects. Yeah, mine's connecting.
Okay. I have to pick up the slack on this one for a little bit.
Good morning, everybody. This is Adrian with PrepAgent. Joe is looking into some connection issues that he's having, so he might take over in a little bit. He is a little better with this topic, but I'm going to do what I can do. So hope everybody's having a great Friday. Happy to see everybody here. Simple, it's good to have you. Good morning, Olafunk. Let's go ahead and just jump into question on the board. So, from the reproduction or replacement cost of a building, the appraiser deducts depreciation, which represents the A, cost to modernize the building, B, remaining economic life of the building, C, remodeling costs to increase rentals, or D, loss of value due to any cause. What do you all think? L says buffering. If anybody's buffering, refresh. I'll go ahead and write that. Hopefully that doesn't become a theme. Okay, is everybody back? Refreshed and still buffering? My stream looks good. Joe says he's not buffering. So you may have to try and get a new link. Sorry for all the dead air early on here. Just trying to get rolling, but as soon as everybody's caught up, we will be rolling again. Okay, so from the reproduction or replacement cost of a building, the appraiser deducts depreciation, which represents the D, loss of value due to any cause. So that's what most everybody seems to answer. Depreciation is exactly that. It's a loss of value, right? Due to external factors, due to wear and tear, all of those things. Depreciation is not good. So hopefully everybody's caught up now. We're just going to keep plowing ahead since we got started a little late. Try and get as many questions in as we can. What is the basis of the market data approach to appraisal? Is it A, the principle of highest and best use, B, the principle of conformity, C, the principle of supply and demand, or D, the principle of substitution? What does everybody think here? Market data approach. Hopefully everybody's up on their appraisal methods. You know, somebody did ask me the other day in a question feedback why it's even important for an agent, a licensee, any licensee that's not an appraiser really, but for an agent to understand how what the different appraisal approaches are. Maybe Joe can jump in on this as well. But my thought on that is because it makes you look smarter, gives you more insight into how the industry works. And if somebody, you know, like if you're discussing listing prices with somebody, you can be somewhat informed on how an appraiser would actually go about valuating a property. It's just going to add value to you as an agent, which makes it an important thing to learn, you know. So what is the basis of the market data approach to appraisal? The answer is D, the principle of substitution, which, according to our explanation here, states that no prudent person would pay more than they need to when there's another property available with the same use, design, and income for a lower price, right? So Joe is also talking about the different types of appraisal: market data, cost approach, and income. So market data is the one we're talking about now. We will probably come across cost and income in questions later. So next on the board, we're going to talk comparables. Which of the following comparables would be the most helpful in appraising a home? Is that A, a similar home sold by a motivated seller to a motivated buyer? B, a similar property sold under duress? C, a similar home sold for non-payment of taxes? Or D, a similar home sold by an unwilling seller to an unsure buyer? What does everybody think here? How does everybody feel about valuation and appraisal? Is this like a difficult topic? Is it one of the easier ones to learn? Does it just feel like not super applicable to what you're going to do? Love to hear an opinion on that. I'm curious because we don't have the same sort of rapid fire answers that we often get with property ownership. I'm a little curious how everybody feels about it. Which of the following comparables would be the most helpful in appraising a home? The answer is A, a similar home sold by a motivated seller to a motivated buyer. And the point there is mostly just about if you're trying to sell a home, you're going to be a motivated seller. Your seller's going to be motivated. Obviously, you want a motivated buyer. And so that's just going to be your most apples to apples comparison. And that's all a comparable is, right? It's something that we compare against our subject property to get a good idea of what it's worth. So a few people say that appraisal is difficult, it's confusing. Not a lot of people love it. Table Talk Live. If your video is still reloading, you probably can't hear me, but Dale says C, a similar home sold for non-payment of taxes. Yeah, if you're a buyer, that would absolutely be the comparable you want because that gets sold for whatever return the government needs to make on it. All right. Next question. Well, it's good to find out. Maybe we'll try and sneak this into the schedule a bit more often. Because the things you're already good at, we probably don't need to cover as many times. But if not as many people are good with valuation and market analysis, we will look at throwing it in to the schedule more often so that everybody gets a little better with it. So now we're going to talk sales comparison approach. The sales comparison approach to value is most important when estimating the value of an apartment building A, B, an existing residence, C, a retail location, or D, a hotel. What do you all think with this one, sales comparison approach? How do we feel about that? The sales comparison approach to value is most important when estimating the value of B, an existing residence. This approach, according to our explanation, normally is considered the most reliable in appraising single-family homes. to numbers of current sales. So for now, we're just going to keep in mind that sales comparison most appropriate for residential homes. I'm going to look into specifically why that is. I haven't encountered the sales comparison as much. And then income approach is more commercial, right? So sales comparison for residential, income approach for commercial. All right, this one comes up a lot in question feedback, and so I'm just going to caution you guys ahead of time. Read the question and answers carefully and completely. The physical characteristic of real estate that means that every parcel of land is different is known as A, uniqueness, B, immobility, C, indestructibility, or D, scarcity. What does everybody think here? Physical characteristic of real estate, which means that every parcel of land is different, is known as uniqueness. So, bonus question, is scarcity a physical characteristic? What do you guys think? Is scarcity a physical characteristic of land or real estate? Aurora says no. That is the correct answer. Scarcity is an economic characteristic, as noted here on our answer, but it is not a physical characteristic. We do have a question in our practice exams that asks about that a lot of people get confused on. Because scarcity is just a concept, is there enough is subjective, right? What may be enough to me is not enough to you or to somebody else. Ooh, an acre. Conversions. An acre contains approximately A, 5,270 square yards, B, 43,560 square feet, C, 40,000 square feet, or D, 1/4 square mile. What does everybody think here? How much is an acre? And bonus points for a good memory technique that keeps that in your brain, that keeps the right number in your brain. A lot of people have different memory techniques. If anybody has one they want to throw up on the board, that's bonus points. So an acre contains approximately 43,560 square feet. Nice job. Dale says, if we don't get this one by now, you're not doing us justice. Appreciate the thought, Dale, but numbers like this are easy to get confused, get mixed up in your head, to transpose and get them around. That's why I was curious about the memory techniques for this one. Doesn't look like tons of people have them. 7-Eleven. Oh, Rosanna says 7-Eleven. 4 plus 3 equals 7. 5 plus 6 plus 0 equals 11. Marta uses that one too. Not sure about in any shape. All right, next question. Of the following, which would not affect supply? So we're talking demand and supply here, basic economic principles, right? A, government controls. B, population. C, the labor force. Or D, construction costs. What do you think here? Of the following, which does not affect supply? Aurora has a 56 Chevy, then just remembers the numbers around it. That's pretty awesome. 56 Chevy is a classic. These don't seem to be as big of a deal as they were when I was growing up. So, not a lot of people super clear on this one either, as well. So, of the following, which does not affect supply? Population. Population itself as a number doesn't affect the supply of materials, but the government controls of the manufacture of materials, the labor force, for example, not having enough people to produce goods, and then construction costs, the cost to construct materials all affect supply. So when we're talking about things like supply and demand, those are usually economic concepts of the production and distribution of goods and materials. So, another thing that we talk about in valuation is GDP, right? The gross domestic product. Supply and demand of goods and materials greatly affects GDP. So, if you're a richer country, you're going to have a greater supply. You're going to be able to produce more goods and materials, which can be sold. And then once you have more money as a country, you suddenly are able to support a greater demand. So, for the most part, throughout most of the 20th century, America was great with both. We supplied a lot of the world's products, and then we also were rich enough to demand a lot of the world's products. Now that model's shifted a little bit, but hopefully that explains a little bit of what we're talking about with supply and demand. It's just the ability to move goods and materials. Why is that important to real estate? Because it affects your markets. It affects how much people can afford to pay for homes. It affects like interest rates. It affects a lot of things about your industry. Like if interest rates go way up, and then the economy isn't moving really fast, real estate's not going to be as popular either. So hopefully that explains why we talk about these things a little bit with valuation and market analysis. Probably not a huge portion of your exam. It's why we don't encounter it tons. But it's important just to understand the basic nuts and bolts of how it works, again, so that you can add value as a real estate agent, right? So that you can explain these things to your customers and sound smarter, but also be able to be right, when you're estimating things, when you're giving them information. All right. This one we cover a bit more, so hopefully we'll see a lot of good answers here. A 4-bedroom house with a 1-car garage would be an example of A, economic obsolescence, B, functional obsolescence, C, physical deterioration, or D, environmental obsolescence. What does everybody think here? 4-bedroom house with a 1-car garage. Four-bedroom house with a 1-car garage is an example of B, functional obsolescence. Did see a few A's thrown out there. Economic obsolescence are factors outside of the property. Does anybody have a good example of economic obsolescence? Something that causes economic obsolescence in a home? We will give a good example to those people who were confused on that one. Poor design is functional obsolescence. R.A. Smoot says an airport. That is a very common one. So if they build an airport near your home and suddenly you have a lot of noise pollution, that is an example of economic obsolescence. Freeway being built near your home, says Aurora. Less jobs in the area, says Simple. That's also a great one. Blighted neighborhood, that's a great one as well. Crime increasing in the neighborhood. So those are all great examples of economic obsolescence. And so the difference between those two conceptually is that functional obsolescence, as a homeowner, you have some control over. Economic obsolescence, you have no control over. Like if you're unhappy with the increasing economic obsolescence of your home, your only real option is to sell the home, probably at a loss because of the economic obsolescence, or to band together in some sort of um, neighborhood like watch program or group that tries to get the economic situation back on track. You don't have a lot of direct control over it. What about physical deterioration? Can anybody think of a good example of physical deterioration in a home? Olafunk says wear and tear. That's a good description of physical deterioration. The reason that I'm asking for an example is because when you see a story problem on your actual real estate exam, there's a good chance they're going to give you a situation, right? So they're going to give you an example of when this happens. And then, it's up to you to sort of make that mental connection between a real life example, the definition or the conceptual understanding of something, and then what the actual answer is. So Diana says house falling down, paint coming off, mold, says Conway. That's a great example. Leaky roof, says Terry. That's the one that I was thinking of. Rosanna also said leaky roof. So those are great ones. Those are things that you encounter a lot, probably in real life. Great. And then environmental obsolescence, that would just relate to sort of the things around you, maybe floods, something like that. All right, so let's try and squeeze a few more questions in. An appraiser who uses improper methods to appraise a property for a government-backed loan may be guilty of A, a misdemeanor, B, a felony, C, a warning, or D, violating real estate license law. Joe says it is also economic obsolescence, environmental obsolescence. That's a great point because environmental obsolescence is something you don't have control over. So that's a good way to remember the difference between those, is like, do you have control over it as a homeowner or not? So back. And it's outside of the property lines, says Joe, exactly. An appraiser who uses improper methods to appraise a property for a government-backed loan may be guilty of B, a felony. And that's because we're talking about a government-backed loan and improper methods. So, vague questions like this are going to be a little bit more up to a court, right? So it's not important for you guys to necessarily understand what's behind that, but that when you're talking about somebody basically defrauding the government, you're probably going to be guilty of a felony. And very specifically in this case, you're going to be guilty of a felony. When appraising a commercial property, the appraiser is most concerned with the A, total debt service on the property, B, income generated by the property, C, sales price of comparable properties, or D, accrued depreciation on the property. So again, we're talking appraisals here. Dale says, if it wasn't government, would it be D? Sorry, Dale, I don't remember what D was. So I don't have a good opinion on that, and I can't go back. Our our exams don't do that. Only moving forward. Good advice for life, right? Keep moving forward. Everything else is in the past. Can't do nothing about it. So let's talk about this appraiser moving forward. When appraising a commercial property, the appraiser is most concerned with the income generated by the property. Does anybody have a good opinion on why that is? Looks like we mostly got that right. So what's like a good keyword there that links this question to the answer? Any thoughts? Any idea why income generated by the property is correct? Aurora says income with a question mark. Say that with a more authority, Aurora. That's exactly it. And Drew says commercial, and it's that connection, commercial and income. Anytime you're talking about commercial leases, not anytime, but most of the time, you're going to be pretty concerned with their income. And then, excuse me, the kicker on a question like this is that none of the rest of the answers apply to commercial properties, right? They have to do with just like a residential property or with the building itself or with something, that has nothing to do with appraising a commercial property. The debt service on a property has nothing to do with appraising a commercial property. Excuse me. Income approach has that strong connection. So the principle of appraising, the principle of appraising, which states that the maximum value is achieved when the property is in harmony with its surroundings, is the principle of A, competition, B, highest and best use, C, contribution, or D, conformity. What do you think? The principle of appraising, which states that the maximum value is achieved when the property is in harmony with its surroundings. Some pretty good debate on this one. The principle of appraising, which states that the maximum value is achieved when the property is in harmony with its surroundings, is the principle of conformity. So the highest and best use is another principle that we speak about a lot, which is, I think, why people were also considering that one as a possible answer. But that one, as we have here in the explanation, is that the use will give the property its greatest current value, highest and best use. So they're pointing towards similar ends. You're trying to get to the same ends to try and decide what the best way of using it is. You're just going about it slightly different, in harmony with its surroundings versus, like what's the potential greatest use of a building given the current situation around it. Do we really need a gas station here? Gas station is not in harmony with its surroundings, so that would probably not be your answer if you're using the principle of conformity. But if you're using the principle of highest and best use, and you've got a busy road there, then that may be your best answer. So they're just different ways at looking at a problem based on sort of different principles. Principles are like morals of a person. or a business or an entity. Right, move on to something a little bit different. Aurora says tricky. Yeah, the whole appraisal thing is tricky, and again, the important thing for you guys is just to generally understand how it works. You know, unless you're also going to get an appraiser license if your state happens to offer that. You just really need to understand how these things work in a general sense together so that you can offer the best value as an agent. A condominium form of ownership is officially established when the A. Construction of the improvements is completed. B. Unit owners all file their documents in the public record. C. Condominium Owners Association is established. Or D. Developer records a declaration in the public record. What does everybody think here? When is condominium ownership officially established? Another sort of tricky one that doesn't come up all that much. Seems like we're mostly in consensus, though. A condominium form of ownership is officially established when the D. Developer records a declaration in the public record. Nice work. Dale, this is for the whole building. Because if you're talking about individual people, you know, like you might not buy a condominium until after the whole building, the developer has recorded this like 20 years ago. And the key there is that we're just talking about a condominium form of ownership as opposed to a different use of the building. So your key word is form of ownership there. And this is the question I was thinking we encountered earlier. All of the following are physical characteristics of land except A. Scarcity, B. Indestructibility, C. Uniqueness, or D. Immobility. What does everybody think? Joe says, great webinar. I agree. A little rough on the start, so sorry to everybody about that. But great participation. I think we covered some strong topics. We'll see what everybody thinks about this last one. All of the following are physical characteristics of land except A. Scarcity. Scarcity is an economic concept or an economic characteristic. And as Will Rogers said, they ain't making any more of it. All right, everybody. Thanks for stopping by today. That's going to do it for today. We will be back at 10 a.m. on Monday. I think we're going to start the week with vocabulary again. Seems to be a good one for the Monday webinars. And so we will hopefully see all of you there. It was a great webinar today. I want to wish everybody good luck for those who are taking their exams soon. Elle says, please do more evaluation. Thanks, Elle. I think we are going to do that. That's what I think I really appreciated about this is we got to cover a lot of things that people weren't super familiar with, which means everybody learned. And that's the point of all of these webinars, right? So thanks again. Really appreciate everybody's participation today. And we will see you all Monday. Have a great weekend and take care. Ciao.